Hey everybody, welcome back to Tech Junior Tutorials, and this is the Advent of Code, and I'm Lee Warwick Jr. And today we're going to be doing day one, JavaScript. So let's check out this puzzle. So here we are on adventofcode.com. You want to play along, you can go to this address, sign in with GitHub, get started doing a puzzle every day until Christmas. So day one is the tyranny of the rocket equation. And basically, if you watch the other video, you're well aware of the requirements of this one, but essentially you have a rocket that you're trying to launch, and each module that you have to carry with you has some kind of weight to it, and for that weight, you have to find out the fuel that's required to launch. So basically, they give you a little math problem and say, take a number, divide it by 3, round down, and subtract 2. And then you add all those numbers together, and then you get the answer of how much fuel you need. So we could do this in VS Code with a JavaScript file, but I think it's kind of fun to do this in the browser. So let's check out the inputs. So if you go down to the bottom, they'll give you the puzzle input. And if we click that, we're going to get this HTML file. And so it's got all these numbers, and this is basically what we need to do our operations on. So you could just copy this into your code editor or whatever and do that, but that's no fun. Let's go ahead and use DevTools to do this. So if you look at this in DevTools, you can see that we get a, let's see if I can blow up DevTools. Yeah, Chrome. Chrome's so awesome. So basically, these numbers are in a pre-tag. And if we open this up, we can see there's our string. And so let's go ahead and grab this with JavaScript. So I'm going to do this all in the console, at least for this first part of the problem, and then we'll jump over to VS Code for the rest of it. So if I wanted to grab the contents of this page right here that I'm on, I would want to use document.querySelector. And I want to grab the pre-tag. And so if I do that, there it is. There's all the inputs. And if I wanted to get the values out of there, I could use inner text or inner HTML. And that's going to give me all these numbers as a string. So, here we go. We're going to save this to a variable. Say this is our input. And yeah, let's do that. I've got input. So how do we break this up into like an array or something? So I think we can use split, and we're going to use, let's try the return character and see what we get. Cool. So it looks like we've almost got it. We've still got, nope. We split it into one solid block of text. So we don't want that. Let's try -n. Nope. -n-r. Let's try nr space. About space. That's not good either. Try n. There we go. Okay, so if we split on the new line character, that will do it. For whatever reason, when I read this in earlier with Node, it required the /r to do this. So basically, we know that we can split it with -n. So let's clear this. We're going to say that our module array is equal to that. And we'll save this to a variable. So now if we do a module r, there it is. Okay. And now we want to, in JavaScript, loop through all these numbers and do this operation on them to get the answer. And so that answer is going to be to add together all these values, but first to divide by 3, subtract by 2. Or I'm sorry, divide by 3, round down, and then subtract 2. So we could do that with like a for loop or a for each or something. But I like to use array methods, and a really good one for this would be reduce. So we're going to do dot reduce, and that is going to take, as you can see, a callback function and then an optional initial value. So there's that initial value. We're going to start at 0. And then our callback function is going to take the accumulator, or that's like our, think of it as like a bucket that you're going to throw all your values into, and then the current value. So we'll say that's our number string. Well, it's a string, so let's call it a string. And then we're going to use an arrow function, and we need to take this string, turn it into a number. So we could do that with number. And then we want to add this thing to the accumulator. Going to divide it and round it. I think we set by 3. We also want to subtract 2. And just to be safe, let's wrap this in an extra parens. Sorry, right here. Just to make sure. And hopefully we did this right. This should be the answer that we're looking for, which is 3,422,659. And if we look, 3,422,661. Ooh, so we're off here by a little bit. Let's check our math here. Divide by 3, round down, subtract 2. What do we have? Divide by 3. Maybe our math.floor operation is off. Let's look here. That seems to be okay. This is suspiciously close to the number that we're looking for. 659, 661. So my suspicion here is that the runtime of JavaScript in the browser is a little bit different from Node, and that's why we're off by 2. So for whatever reason, working with these giant numbers, JavaScript's not really good for that. If you're doing math in JavaScript, you can get into trouble. And I think that's what we've run into here. But let's go ahead and jump to Node and see if we can get a better result. So let's jump into Node. Here we are, same same language, but we're going to use VS Code and run this on the Node runtime. So I've got our values copied over in the input.txt file, and we're going to read these into Node. So to do that, we're going to use file system, just a built-in Node package, and we're going to do fs.read file. We're going to give that the path to our file. Then the character encoding that it should use to read it. So UTF-8 is just like a really basic, I don't want to say it's basic because it's really hard to program that, but it is a universal, I guess, encoding format. And then when it's done reading that file, we're going to give it a callback function. So you can also use read file sync instead of read file, but read file is not blocking. So that means that the rest of your program can run while JavaScript is, or the Node runtime is reading this file. Whereas if this was a massive file and you use read file sync, it locks up the thread and none of your other code will run. So also, old school Node syntax or convention is to pass in the error first into a callback function and then the actual stuff that you want. So we just have like a dummy error here. So if you really wanted to be proper, you could do like, if there's an error, return the error, or return a console log of the error or something like that. But right now we just want to console log the data and see if that works. So we're going to run node rocketmodule.js, and there's all our numbers. So great. Now what we want to do is basically the same operation that we did before. So remember I said there was a little discrepancy between the two. In Node, I actually have to use this return plus the new line character. So let's go ahead and console log I'll use array and see if I'm correct on that one. Yes. Okay, and now we want to, let's reduce that function again. So we're going to say that our answer is equal to values array.reduce. And pass that our accumulator, our just call it current value. And we're going to add the accumulator to math.floor number current divided by 3 minus 2. Make sure all of our parens line up. Pass it an initial value of 0. Let's see what we get for an answer. 3,422,661, which is the correct answer. So pretty much the exact same code, but in Node it's correct, and in Chrome it is pretty close, but not quite. So, yeah, I would say if you're doing the advent of code at home, maybe you'd want to use Node if you're using JavaScript. So back to that. There's actually a micro optimization we could do here. Instead of calling number inside of the reduce, we could clean this up a little bit and do a map. And we could do another arrow function that says, like, take each thing in this array, they're all strings, but turn them into numbers. So we could return number, num. Actually, this is a string, so sometimes the code completion in VS Code gets me. Okay, so we're going to take that string, convert it to a number, and then don't have to do that in here. Save that. And we get the same answer. All right, so that is part 1 of the solution. Now let's check out part 2. So we go back to our challenge. Come down to part 2. With part 2, they want us to calculate the fuel that it would take. So in part 1, we calculated how much fuel it takes to propel a mass. And now in part 2, we're checking out, okay, well, if we add fuel, that's adding weight to the rocket. And so we now need to add extra fuel for the fuel that we added. So like we solved in the Python video, this will require recursion. So let's go ahead and do that in JavaScript. So we're pretty much going to do the same type of thing, except we now need to calculate the fuel required for the fuel. So we get all of our fuel calculation right there. I'm actually going to cut that out, and we are going to actually make our own function called getFuel. So we're going to calculate the fuel, and we're going to say if fuel is greater than 0. Actually, let's be cool and use a ternary. If the fuel is greater than 0, return fuel plus get fuel of fuel, or return 0. So in the problem set, it says if it requires 0 fuel, or I'm sorry, if it's negative fuel, go ahead and treat that as 0. So whenever we do this calculation, if we divide by 3 and subtract 2, you have a possibility of a negative number. So we just check for that. And if we do have some amount of fuel, go ahead and add it, do another calculation for that fuel weight and how much fuel to propel that fuel until we basically recursively call it down to 0. So how do we add that into this function? Well, we could call get fuel and current. And if we do that, we should get the answer that we're looking for. 5,131,103. Let's check our answer. And there it is. All right. So that's all I've got for this JavaScript one, for day one. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. If you do, like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and check out day 2, where we will be hopefully solving another problem and not pulling our hair out. And we'll get that done in Python, hopefully, and then also JavaScript. All right, we'll see you tomorrow.